Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mongooli's Movie Show. Today, I'm joined by my buddy Adam once again, and we're going to go over our top 5 Spider-Man movies. Last week got a little bit heavy. We're going to keep things much lighter this week and a little bit shorter because it also ran long for time. So with that being said, let's get right into it and bring Adam on. Adam, how are you doing this week?
Hello, I'm doing pretty good.
Excellent. As per normal, we get started off by what have we been doing this week? And Adam, I have to say, I have been so swamped with work, I don't have a whole lot to say, so I'm kind of hoping you've been busy with some fun stuff.
Well, I definitely have been. Red Dead Redemption 2 was on sale recently, so I scooped that up on the old Xbox Series S. The naming convention still messes me up every time, but
that's fair.
Oh my god, I love that game so much, and I missed playing it. I played it at launch, but it's been a long time since I've played it, and it's fun being a cowboy again. I can tell you that.
No doubt. I did play the first one all the way through, quite a bit, all the DLC.
Okay.
And just, maybe it's the amount of time I have for those kind of projects these days. I just couldn't get into the second one. I own it, I have the digital copy, but I just couldn't get more than a couple hours into it.
I mean, it definitely does take a large time investment. Like, that's almost all I've been doing in my free time has been playing Red Dead Redemption 2. So, like, it definitely, especially, like, I know you've got kids and you've got other responsibilities. And so sometimes you can't take 3 hours to just run around and hunt a deer and talk to some NPCs and stuff. But it does really reward the immersion if you have the time to devote to it.
Yeah,
because like just the fact that like all the animations run so smooth, everything, like when did it come out? Like 2018, I want to say.
It's been a while now. Like, it's not a new game, but it still looks absolutely gorgeous.
That's exactly where I was going. It looks better than most games that have come out this year. Like, it looks amazing. Yeah. And like it has a sense of weight behind it that the Rockstar games generally have that I really appreciate. You don't really find in other games. When you're running around, you have a sense of real inertia. Your horse has weight to it. The carts have weight. Makes gunfights play very nicely. You're shooting and diving and dodging around.
It definitely feels like one of those games that really rewards you for putting in the time and spending the time with it. Like,
it does. It
doesn't necessarily feel like it would get stale so much as you just need to actually invest.
And that's what it is. Like, you definitely need to just sit down and spend at least a couple of hours every day to get, like, not to enjoy it, but to really see everything that it has.
Yeah.
And even
man, what I wouldn't give for a couple hours a day to just video game now.
I believe it, man. But even just beelining the story, it has such, like, it's a prequel technically to the first Red Dead Redemption, but it's a good prequel. It's along the lines of Better Call Saul. It's more Better Call Saul than Phantom Menace when it comes to prequels.
Careful, people are starting to like Phantom Menace these days.
Historical revisionism is really starting to kick in there.
Is it, like, do you know right away that it's a prequel? That kind of took me by surprise there. Does that later on?
Yes. I mean, you see John Marston pretty early, and I mean, knowing how the first one ends tells you something's going on. Can't remember if they give an exact time stamp or not, but yeah, it's like, want to say roughly a couple years. I want to say up to 5 years before Red Dead 1.
So still right in that same time zone.
Still in the same time zone. Still, it's the end of the cowboy era. It's the 1890s, I think. You're still following the Dutch gang, and you just get to learn a little bit more about the backgrounds of some of these characters. Yeah, as Mad Dingo says, it's easy to tell since John is a young man when you first see him. Yeah, he's definitely a little younger.
It's entirely possible I just completely forgot that. As I said, I didn't stick with it for very long, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, my kids, who are young, really want me to play it because they've watched a lot of YouTube videos where once you beat the game, you can just go for like horseback rides,
Yeah.
and that's all they want to do. And I'm like, I don't want to play 90 hours of this video game so you can go for a horseback ride. Like that's a bit much, but I do appreciate it.
One of the things I've really loved about it is just playing poker.
Okay.
That was one of the things I would always, I don't know if it's if they have it in the second one, but in the first one, you could just like free roam online and just sort of do everything you could in the single player. So I would use it as an online poker like game and just hang out in Thieves Landing.
You know, there's way easier ways to do that, right?
But there's no other ways where you can get up and shoot the man in the face if you lose.
Okay, that's fair. If that's what you want to do, just flip and pull your gun. Get a little Westworld there.
It's also just like, I don't know. It was a fun way to do it. And they also, like, right there in the casino, they would have access to, like, liar's dice and blackjack and all the other fun accoutrements.
Fair enough.
So I used to do that online all the time in the first one. I just play it offline in the second one. Still fun, though.
Okay. Did you have a chance to check out the new Marvel show, Secret Invasion?
I did, actually, and that one snuck up out of nowhere, eh? They did not do a lot to advertise that one.
I remember hearing it came out in June, and then all of a sudden it was June, and I'm like, when did that happen? Like, why is it not March still? What's going on?
I know. Well, yeah, I guess some of that isn't Marvel's fault, but I thought it was really good. Have you seen it yet?
I watched the first episode, which is, I believe, the only one that's out so far, right?
Yeah, Wednesday, I believe, will be the second.
I found myself playing on my phone more than I was anticipating. And that might have been my mood of the day more so, because I was looking forward to this one. It could have really used, and maybe it does in the special features, I don't know, but it could have really used a refresher course, because they kind of mentioned Talos, and I'm like, right.
Okay.
But, like, telling me a bit, like, especially when all the characters are going to change faces every couple of minutes, giving you a bit more, like, this is what's happening. Could you help. And, like, maybe it's just a matter of I'll wait till there's, like, 4 episodes and I'll just binge 4 episodes. But I found myself a little bit confused with what was going on, and now that it's been 5 days, not, like, kind of forgetting what happened even. Like, I remember the ending. I remember that, because nobody will shut up about it, despite the fact they're all saying it's spoilers. It's like, no. Like, I mean, spoiler free, but the shocking ending, like, yeah.
It'll be the thumbnail itself, too.
Yeah.
I had a much more positive experience with it. I wasn't expecting much from it. I think most of the Disney Plus Marvel shows have been okay at best, but sort of just, like, very passable, very middle of the road. But this one, I was perking up a little bit. I don't know why, but I still very much remember the events of Captain Marvel, and I still remember that Ben Mendelsohn is Talos and that his daughter was there. And, like, some of those callbacks, they were a little fresher for me, even though I've only seen Captain Marvel, like, once or twice.
Fair enough.
I liked the fact that it was sort of more of a return to the tone of something like Civil War or Winter Soldier, much more of a political thriller. And I liked that it actually, like, was a political thriller. There was a little bit of like, cat and mouse with Sam Jackson and Olivia Colman, like the MI6 agent there that he talks to. Yeah. There was a lot of, like, higher stakes. They were treating it like an adult situation.
I feel like if they really expect you to know what's happening going in, which admittedly, I've seen the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe multiple times. I should. But again, just a little bit of a refresher, or like, this is exactly what we're going into, might have made me care more about what is going on right from the get-go, because they really do just throw you right in.
They do. And I could definitely see how it would benefit from, like a previously on the MCU, just kind of showing some of the Fury threads, showing some of the Skrull, like, story threads that have been around. Because I guess, like, they have been scattered throughout, like, half a dozen movies over this past phase, too. Yeah. Like, they've just been drip feeding little bits of, okay, Fury's on this space station and he's working with some Skrulls, but, like, it's never been explicitly said to us.
And that's just it. They kind of leave it up to you to figure out what's going on through like 2 minutes here and 30 seconds there.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought it was really cool. I enjoyed the fact that we're getting to know more about Fury, that he's taking a more central role.
Yeah.
That he's going to have an actual character.
Matt Dingo asks, did you guys see the Skrulls in the public news? I'm going to say no, I didn't.
I saw that was it. Like, I saw that online, that was a thing that they were doing. They hired, like, dudes in makeup as Skrulls to just kind of sit in the background of some news broadcasts that would have aired on local news
of real
channels.
Life news, or like on the TV?
Yeah. On real life news, yeah. As like viral marketing.
That's kind of a cool viral marketing strategy. I like that.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. One thing I didn't like was that they used AI to generate the opening credits. I did not like that at all.
Now,
I didn't
did you
like
not
their
like the look of the
justification.
opening credits, or just the fact that it's taking food out of artists' mouths?
I dislike the precedent that it sets, especially, it's taking food out of artists' mouths. They said it's not, but, like, of course it is. And it sets a precedent that that's an okay thing to do. Like, Marvel is an industry leader. They can come up with whatever narrative justification bullshit that they want. The truth is they did it to save a couple bucks and because they thought they could. I did not like it at all. And it really put a stinker on the what overall felt like a very like artist positive show. This felt like the least like created by committee show that has been on Disney Plus in a while. So to see them do something so anti-art was disappointing.
I don't like. Obviously, this is a huge controversy, and people have been talking about this all week. I would have had no idea. They would have absolutely pulled the rug over my eyes or the wool over my eyes if it hadn't been a huge story. I just watched. Usually, I watch the intro once, and then after that, I skip it anyway.
Which is fair.
If I'm being perfectly honest. I can understand and appreciate. You want to hire real talent. You want to hire real artists for things like this. This is what they go to school for. This is what they're passionate about. It fooled me. It did its job.
I mean, that's fair. I spend a lot of time on Twitter and like art spheres, so I'm seeing a lot of AI art, so I can like sort of tell the style very quickly.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it just bothered me a lot.
Now, one of the ones that I've been watching the last couple of weeks is the Arnold documentary on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
You have them in your background. Have you started watching this, or just?
I have not. I put it on for a minute so it would show up on my continue watching screen, but then I fell asleep. So I'm gonna have to rewatch it from the beginning.
I finished it. It's only 3 episodes. They're about I want to say about an hour or so each. And the third one, like you were worried about being a fluff piece. Yeah. The third one definitely goes a little bit more into the nitty-gritty, talking about the dissolution of his marriage and his illegitimate son and the political world and how that was kind of a struggle for him to get into until he kind of like made it his own, for lack of a better term. Like he didn't play by their rules. He kind of made them play by his.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. I really enjoyed the documentary. Matt Dingo, whoa, that exists. I'm going to assume you're talking about the Arnold documentary. Yes, there's a three-part Arnold documentary on Netflix right now. It's excellent. I highly recommend it. That being said, I watched it while doing other things. I don't know if I would have just sat there and watched it for 3 hours, but as something to listen to while playing Diablo, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I need to check it out. And it sounds like I'm glad to hear that it's not just a fluff piece, that it is diving into that less savory sort of stuff too.
Yeah. Well, as I said, like a large part of it shows him kind of just sitting in his mansion by himself, and it does like it's a nice looking house. He's a good looking dude, but it just looks lonely and kind of sad.
Yeah.
Like,
do you think it's meant to, or do you think it's Arnold sort of like showing off? Like, is it supposed to be him
being a little bit of a
like a
look
vulnerable...
how great I am, but it doesn't give off that tone inherently.
Yeah.
You're definitely not supposed to. Well, I don't think you're supposed to feel pity for him. Like, I don't think it's a oh, woe is me kind
Yeah,
of
they're not
situation.
framing it as if it's like, yeah. But
Yeah.
it's there. It's still
It's
this
just kind
old
of
man.
honest. This is my life. This is what I did. I'm very happy where I'm at. I've got 5 beautiful kids who I love, but I'm not perfect. I've messed up. So
And he's alone, ultimately, right? Like,
yeah.
like that's what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So I also, because we're doing the Spider-Man top 5, as I was busy, I was hoping to rewatch more. I did start watching The Amazing Spider-Man again.
Oh, nice.
And we'll get into this, but like because I've been listening to a podcast, and the podcast was talking about the Ultimate Spider-Man comic run from like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And I was like, that sounds familiar. That sounds familiar. That sounds familiar. I love the Ultimate Spider-Man run, but I haven't read it in a long time. And so it's kind of like, I want to like pick up my first issue of Ultimate Spider-Man, go back, watch the movie, and just kind of like read along. And it doesn't line up one for one, but there's a lot of similarities there. More so than with the like 1962 Amazing Fantasy or Amazing Spider-Man #1. Like it definitely has its roots in Ultimate Spider-Man. So that was kind of a fun rewatch. I didn't get to finish it just because, again, time. But yeah, sadly, that's pretty much all I've been up to this week is working, family life, and those 3 TV shows.
I mean, hey, that's fair. One thing I've been watching too has been the Skull Island Netflix show, that new cartoon that they just dropped.
Okay.
Set in the like the Godzilla Kong, yeah, the Monsterverse, I think they call it, the legendary Monsterverse. It's been okay. It's nothing nothing to write home about. It's like a solid 7 out of 10. Sort of cheap animation. Nothing new. A couple of people, father and son, wind up stranded on Skull Island because they've been monster hunting. They get separated. The son teams up with a young girl who has also been stranded on Monster Island. So she's been able to like be the badass that knows how to do stuff and can sort of reunite this son with his father. And it's kind of feels like something I've seen 1,000 times before. Not bad in execution. I wish it was better though, because I love these monster movies.
No, that's totally fair.
And,
I did see that on Netflix, but it didn't grab me as much.
Yeah, I mean, Kong's barely in it too. He just kind of pops in every now and again for the characters to go, whoa, look at how big that monkey is. And I don't know. I haven't finished it yet. I still have an episode left, but I can't, like, I don't think it's going to really
that one last episode is going to make the season?
I don't think so. I'll be surprised if it gets another one. It feels like one of the shows that HBO Max probably, like, sold off for tax reasons or whatever. Like, and I think Netflix just picked it up. Oh, yeah?
Speaking of which, I forgot. I've been watching the Harley Quinn TV show, which is another one that HBO kind of like sold off to Netflix.
Yeah.
I've been hearing great things about it for years. It's finally in a format that I can actually watch, and it's fine. it's good. I'm watching it. I'm going to keep watching it. It feels like it relies on the shock value of swearing way too much.
In the early episodes, it definitely does. It's one that finds its groove, like near the end of season 1, season 2, it definitely relies less on that and continues to moving forward. But yeah, I felt very similarly, especially that pilot episode was like pretty juvenile.
I knew it was like not for kids, and my kids were bugging to watch. I'm like, all right, we'll give it a try, and it lasted 2 seconds, and I'm like, nope.
Yeah, no, it's a hard R series. Yeah. It uses that though in some very interesting ways. How far are you?
3 or 4 episods.
Okay, so
she just wanted to get her nemesis.
Okay. So, have you seen the Penguin bar mitzvah episode yet?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Using that, like, I believe Penguin dies in that episode. Does he not?
I don't think so, but
pretty sure it ended with Penguin dying.
Oh, that could be. That's possible. Yeah.
But it makes some very bold choices. Like, he stays dead. and that like creates a power vacuum in Gotham, and it actually like commits to some of these choices that it makes in stirring up the DC universe, and it sort of uses them in very interesting ways. Some of them are pretty jokey, but ultimately, like I admire that at least it's trying to do some stuff. Like it takes all these toys out of the toy box and isn't afraid to dirty them up a little bit.
I do like that it is exploring Ivy and Harley's relationship.
Yes.
Not too far into the romantic side so far, but just their friendship for now. And I actually really liked Poison Ivy in this iteration. I've never been a huge Poison Ivy fan, but her humor, I'm actually really jiving with. The over-the-top humor of most of the other people, I'm kind of like, yeah, okay. But she is me in this situation, where she's just kind of like, really? That's what you're going to do? Like, yeah, that sounds right.
She's a great straight man to the rest of them. Absolutely.
Well put.
As the crew grows too, like you have JB Smoove as her like talking plant, and George from Seinfeld, I'm blanking on the actor's name. He becomes their landlord. Jason Alexander.
Costanza, but all I've got is Costanza, and that's obviously
Jason Alexander.
There it is. Yeah.
He is their landlord, who's like an old Vietnam War cyborg.
That's who that name is. Yes, okay. I was listening to him, and I'm like, why? I know you. I absolutely 100% know who you are. Did not come to me no matter what.
Yeah, that's him.
Not like I have IMDb in my pocket, but whatever.
As Mad Dingo says, he likes Bane. I think I agree that they sort of use the Tom Hardy version of Bane.
Okay.
And they sort of make him the laughingstock of the rest of the villains. Like nobody else likes Bane.
Nobody takes him seriously.
Yeah, because I got this voice. Let me show you a magic trick. It's pretty funny.
I'm enjoying it enough that I'm definitely going to keep going with it. It just didn't quite blow my socks off like I was anticipating it, and maybe that's because I've been hearing how good it was for so long that it just like what could possibly live up.
The hype might have gotten too far. It does get better as it goes on though, so stick with it. Like it grows and expands, especially like Harley and Ivy's relationship. As it grows, it becomes a very like it grows very naturally, and they do it very well.
Cool. Have you? Sorry, is there anything else you want to talk about? Can we jump into the news or?
Yeah, we can jump into the news.
Now, I don't have a whole lot on these. As I said, I was very busy, so I just kind of have the talking points. So I'm kind of relying a little bit on you and a little bit on Mad Dingo to hopefully flesh this out just a little bit. But have you been hearing that Beyond the Spider-Verse is having a whole lot of problems because of the amount of work that was put on the cast or on the artists to get Across the Spider-Verse out?
I have. I heard that, 100 VFX artists quit or left in some capacity from Across the Spider-Verse, like just a response to the horrible working conditions. It would not surprise me if this movie gets delayed. It sounds like it probably needs to get delayed because like these people are like working 50-hour days. Yeah. It sounds like so.
Well, when they first said that Beyond the Spider-Verse was coming out in March, which was less than a year after Across the Spider-Verse, I assumed it was mostly done.
So did I. It would have had to have been the case. I mean, I guess some of it's done, but
that's what I would have thought. But then I think Haley Steinfeld has come out and said she hasn't recorded a single line of dialogue for the new movie. And
that's crazy.
I can't imagine that she's just not in it. That would be ridiculous. That'd be an awful decision on their part. So,
that's crazy.
Like, maybe they just want to get all the animation done first, but usually, don't you record the sound first and then make the animation match it so that you can have that ability to ad-lib and stuff like that?
I have heard that, like, you can sort of do a rough cut animatic, like you could, especially something like Spider-Verse, I could see them being able to do large set pieces, and so many characters have masks on, so it's not like you have to match lip sync for a lot of them. So I could see a situation where maybe there's temp dialogue and they've got animation like as far as they can go, and then they record the dialogue and then they do a lip sync pass.
Okay.
But like that's crazy that she hasn't recorded a single line of dialogue. I would have thought that they would have had that they would have at least been that far, because it's gonna take time to match the lip syncing. Like, that's not a simple fix. And then of course with any movie, you're always tinkering and messing with stuff until the very last minute. So with animation, that gets very costly because that's hard. It takes hours to do what you would consider simple things. If you want to move a cup from this place to there,
Yeah.
That's so it sounds like they had a very unrealistic idea for the release,
Which is really unfortunate, because I do not want to have to wait years till we get that sequel.
Yeah, me neither.
I mean, there was 5 years between Into and Across. I want to say Into came out in 2018.
That sounds right. Yeah. Oh my god.
So, I mean, time is really wonky right now because not right now, but there was those 3 years where basically nothing happened. So I get it, but man, it doesn't feel like it should be 5 years, and I really don't want to wait 5 years for the next one.
I have a feeling it might be at least a year, but yeah, let's hope to God it's not 5 years.
Oh, that would be brutal. In slightly more positive news, James Gunn, or at least Warner Brothers, have announced that they have found their Superman and their Lois Lane.
Yes. I just read that.
I do have the names, but not on the right screen.
David Corenswet is Superman. I can't remember who plays Lois.
Yeah, David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan, sorry. Who was from The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which I watched a couple episodes of. Seemed really funny. I've heard amazing things, but there's only so much time in a day.
Yeah, I've never watched it, but
I looked up his credits. Absolutely nothing that I recognized. But I gotta say, I saw a photo. Somebody photoshopped him into the costume. He looks good. He's got the right look.
He looks the part. I've seen him. I just saw him recently. He had a small part in Pearl, that one horror thriller type movie. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I saw that one on his resume, but I didn't know what it was.
Okay, it's like an old timey 1912 woman goes crazy, and it's a whole big thing. It's a prequel to X, another sort of thriller that came out the year before.
Is that the one with Jenna Ortega in a hotel room or something?
Jenna Ortega, Kid Cudi, Mia Goth. It was a 70s porn meets a slasher movie. These people
I've heard of that one at least. I didn't know anything about it.
It was very good, and then they did a prequel. It fired up the director's imagination so much that he wrote a prequel script in 2 weeks, and they filmed it back to back, and then it came out I think 6 months later or something crazy like that. Anyway, Corenswet has a very small role in Pearl, and I thought he was fine, although I feel like he kind of lacked the charisma that I would have hoped from a Superman. Maybe it was just that role. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt, but
I mean, James Gunn has done phenomenal casting in the rest of his movies. I'm going to assume he knows what he's doing with this one, and I think James Gunn is taking the helm for Superman.
Yeah,
Superman Legacy.
Yeah, I can't remember if it's been officially announced or not, but it's of course, yeah, he's gonna wind up doing it.
Yeah, I actually like the fact that I don't know who this guy is. I think having a Superman who's a little bit unknown is actually a good thing, so you can actually see Superman and not any of the baggage that comes along with it.
I agree. I mean, I guess they pretty much have for all of them. Henry Cavill was pretty unknown at the time, and so was Christopher Reeves. So good that he's keeping in that tradition.
Was it Brandon somebody?
Oh, Brandon Routh. Oh God, I always forget about him. That's right.
Sucks. Just another one that I don't know who that is.
Yeah. He's been greater after Superman. He's had some good funny roles here and there, and
sure. But at the time Superman came out, I didn't know him.
Yeah, and he was a nobody at the time. But yeah, good that he's kept that tradition alive. And you have to imagine that the two of them, like the guy, Corenswet and the woman playing Lois, they must have had good chemistry readings too. Because I know there's been a bunch of actors on the various short lists doing auditions and all sort of configurations to find not just the best Superman and the best Lois, but the best together.
They both had House of Cards in their credits, but only like one episode or something.
Okay.
So I doubt that they overlapped, but that would have been kind of fun if they did, just a random.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting like chance meeting
from a couple of years ago. But
I'm curious to see.
I've got for news. So unless you've got anything you want to talk about, shall we just jump right in?
No, I think we should jump in. I think that's pretty much all that's happened.
Sounds good. Now, this is the first time we've done a top 5 on this channel. What my thought process is we're going to do my top 5 followed by Adam's top 5, and we'll go 5, 4, 5, 5, 5, 4, 4, 3, 3, like that. And when we get to the bottom, maybe we'll try and make one definitive top 5 list for the Mongooli show, or see how it goes. See if we decide to do that, or if our lists are basically the same, we might just leave it at that and be like, or whatever. But I'm pretty sure we're going to have at least a little bit of differences here. I don't know how much controversy we're going to stir up, but it could be a fun discussion. I'm hoping to do this. I'm hoping to do this a lot more, to be honest. I think top 5s are a lot of fun. So with that being said, my number 5 Spider-Man movie of all time is... I don't have a graphic. I don't know why I built it up like I was going to. No Way Home. This one came out in December 17th of 2021. It famously stars all 3 live-action Spider-Men, and it paid off. Had a $200 million budget and made $1.9 billion. Didn't quite crack the $2 billion mark, but still one of the higher-rated or higher-grossing Marvel movies. Definitely the highest-grossing Spider-Man movie. What do you think? Where does? I
think that's pretty solid. Like, I mean, No Way Home is it's one of the better of that trilogy, I would say. I think it handled the nostalgia in such a good way. Like, it could have gone wrong in so many places. It could have been it could have done the worst of what like The Flash has done, but it really nailed it. Like, it made the other Spider-Man feel like they belonged in that story. It still felt like a real Tom Holland story.
Yeah.
It had some good performances from everybody across the board. Very emotional moments.
I really liked that this movie redeemed some characters and or actors. Like, Willem Dafoe got to give his best Green Goblin performance.
Yes.
Jamie Foxx got to kind of apologize for his Electro performance. Andrew Garfield had nothing to apologize for, but his Spider-Man got to kind of redeem himself by saving the MJ at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a lot of... It's not just nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. Like, you're bringing back these characters, you're bringing back these actors, and actually giving them something really hardy to do.
Yes.
As opposed to, like, as you said, some of the parts of The Flash were kind of like, this isn't here for any good reason. This is literally just showing us what we want to see. And while I did want to see it, it's just, at the end of the day, cotton candy. Like, there's no substance to it.
Exactly.
This movie feels like it's got more substance while also giving us that nostalgic feeling.
100% agree. Especially on the Willem Dafoe performance. I was over the moon to see him back again, and in fine form, as he always is.
Yeah. My favorite thing about him, and it's such a little thing, like, I'm always a big fan of like the subtle little nothings, is when he's at the feast, whatever it's called, the charitable donation place, the Feast Foundation. Feast Foundation. And like Aunt May and Peter are just talking, and he's just in the background, and he's just subtly like grabbing donuts and shoving them in his coat.
Yes.
I don't know if that was actually what he was supposed to be doing, or that was just Willem Dafoe, but it was so perfect for like him, just this like random little act of chaos in this nice scene. Like, he just can't help himself.
I guarantee that was just Willem just improvising in the background. It's the mark of a true professional.
Yeah. And like him, I've always hated the Power Ranger Green Goblin suit. So the fact they brought it back enough to acknowledge it, but then he leaves it in the dumpster and is just like, no, I don't need you anymore, and walks away. So you get to see it, but you also get to see him actually acting, because one of the best scenes in the original Spider-Man movie is when he jumps out, like when he first turns to the Green Goblin and he jumps out and he just has that maniacal look on his face. and you're like, oh my gosh, this is a goblin, and then they cover his face up for the rest of the movie, and you're just like, oh, why?
Yeah, 100%. That actually segues pretty well into my number 5, which is the first Spider-Man.
Okay.
The 2002 Spider-Man. I love that movie. It was the movie that introduced me into nerd culture. I remember seeing that movie. I was a kid at the time.
Okay.
I saw the trailer for that movie, and my imagination just fired up on TV. I begged my mom to take me to see it. Once it came out, and she did, there was no going back. I wound up being going to the local comic book store, reading everything I could, became a huge nerd, and it all goes back to that movie, which I love. As I know you do not care for the Sam Raimi movies too much.
Guilty.
But I think that they are such a perfect distillation of the golden age 1960s style Spider-Man, which is a very specific flavor. I could understand why you or others might not like it, but what Raimi did was recreate the stories that he would have read, he would have loved as a child. That sort of hokey, a really goofy Peter Parker, sort of just that tone, that sort of 60s tone, and not even 60s, because it kind of feels out of time. There's elements in those movies that feel 60s, but it's also obviously modern. But I don't know, it captures the tone of the original the comics that would have come out at that time.
No, and I get that. I don't. There are many issues I have with them, and we'll get into that later, I'm sure. But I can appreciate that for a child who, this is their first introduction, it's kind of unlike anything else you would have seen at that time.
100%. Absolutely. At that point, the only superhero movies were the Superman, the Batman, and the X-Men. X-Men 1 would have come out
a year before?
Yeah, X2 wouldn't have come out for a couple years, and all of those movies felt very ashamed at being a superhero.
The black leather.
Yeah, or it was something that had to be dark to work, like the original Burton Batman. Whereas here comes Spider-Man, no significant changes to the outfit, to the story, to everything, except for, unfortunately, Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin suit, which is a huge misstep. I definitely agree with you there. The suit itself looks fine. I think the Goblin glider looks really cool. But the mask, covering up his face with a mask, is a big mistake.
I see what you're saying. Having a body armor makes sense.
Yeah, and it looked just like a Green Goblin suit. But then, covering it up with a mask, I've always said that they should have given him, the Goblin serum should have just made his skin green, and it's just a green-skinned Willem Dafoe cackling. It would have. I think that would have worked a lot better.
100%.
Honestly.
That's exactly what they should have done, because you've already got, no offense to Willem Dafoe, a guy who looks like a creepy goblin.
He has a big goblin energy. It's.
And even if they did the Jack Nicholson face prosthetics, that still allows you the ability to emote and show some scariness. And his eyes are way creepier than that goblin mask ever was. To me, at least. Maybe if you were younger, maybe it did a number. But for me, it was just goofy the whole time.
No, the mask, even as a kid, I remember thinking it just looked like a dumb Power Rangers mask. It looked like something that Power Rangers would have designed if they had money. And, it was never threatening.
No.
Although Willem was doing everything in his power to make it threatening with his voice and his body language.
I won't deny that. The guy's a phenomenal actor.
It worked well enough for me as a kid that I always loved that movie, and I always loved that performance. But the mask definitely knocks it down. It makes him less threatening.
It was a directive to sell toys.
Yes.
The Green Goblin was going to look like a cool toy, and that's 100% why they did it.
Yes.
I couldn't agree more with this comment from Mad Dingo. Willem Dafoe is such a talented actor. It's a shame they fully suited the man up.
100%.
Summed it up perfectly.
Yeah, no. I think though what that movie gets right are the little human moments. Just the little things that we don't see in superhero movies that much anymore, like Aunt May struggling for money and like tearing up trying to give Peter $20 for his birthday. Like, no, you take it. Like, I don't know.
No, I can appreciate that. That definitely felt like my grandmother at some point, where you're
right.
just like, yeah, I get it.
It always
says you have to give it to me, but at the same time, you don't.
You need it. And it like little things like that always hit me. I could take or leave Kirsten Dunst's MJ. I think she did an okay role. Like, she did okay for the role as written, but she kind of lacked a little spark there. But she had good chemistry with Toby, so I could see why they were cast like in relation to each other. But like, I don't know.
I hear what you're saying. I just disagree on every level. I think she's a good actor in other movies. I don't know what she was doing in this one, but she feels very cardboard to me. I don't feel any chemistry between the two of them. The entire movie is spent with him like making googly eyes at her and then walking away from her. And like, I can't remember exactly, but like the entire trilogy is just like them.
It's a lot of will they,
winning
won't
each
they.
other's lives more so than making each other's lives better. And it's like, that's not what a relationship should be. Like,
not a healthy one.
No,
that's for sure. And she does pull that kind of underhanded move in the second one, getting ahead of us a little bit, where she sort of is just using John Jameson as a ploy to make Peter jealous.
Very scummy character work.
Definitely not ideal.
If you want to talk about on-screen chemistry, my number 4 is Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, and their chemistry is off the charts. I've said it before, I will absolutely say it again. I would watch 2 hours of them. You don't even have to have it be Peter Parker, Emma Stone, or Gwen Stacy. You don't have to have Spider-Man in it whatsoever. They are just such a ridiculously cute couple. They work perfectly well off each other. Yeah, they're 30, they're not in high school, but you get the sense of youth from them.
It worked, yeah.
And it like, the movie's phenomenal all around, but it just gives it so much more heart, and I really appreciate that. One of the things I've always felt about Spider-Man, more so than other superheroes, is he is both Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Both of them are equally important for who he is as a character, as opposed to like Batman, where you don't need Bruce Wayne. Like, Bruce Wayne is a mask that he wears to do business, but he's not an emotional heart of the story. He's not necessary in most of the stories. You really need Peter Parker in a lot of these stories to make Spider-Man work. As you were saying about the Aunt May, you need that struggle for money, that bad luck, all the things that make him who he is, and those really shine in this movie, for me at least. Much more so than Tobey Maguire. And it certainly helps that I just like Andrew Garfield as an actor and as a person far more than I like Tobey Maguire as either. So I get that this is far more personal of a decision for me, but it's my top 5. So that's what I decided to go with.
It's interesting because Amazing Spider-Man 1 is also my 4th.
Oh, there you go. I was not expecting that.
Which I love that movie too. I remember when it came out, I was a little more sour on it because I don't know, it was just a matter of timing. It felt like they were replacing Tobey because there was that stink with the Spider-Man 4 movie that sort of fell apart, and then they whipped together the Amazing Spider-Man in response to it. But like, all these years later, removed from it and seeing both Tobey and Andrew together, like, yeah, it's softened me a little bit on it, and it's allowed me to see it just as another Spider-Man movie that exists out there in the universe. And I think it's great. I love it. I agree with everything you said about the chemistry between Emma Stone and Garfield. Like, they sold it a lot more than like Tobey and Kirsten. Like, I liked that. I think that worked for that incarnation. There's some questionable events that happen, but I think just the vibes, the energy they had together worked, but
sure.
it was a lot more palpable and a lot more visible, a lot more undeniable when it came to Garfield and Stone. Like,
well, I know some people will say like, oh, well, they were dating at the time. Of course, they had good chemistry, but like,
well, good. That's
so what?
yeah.
That's perfect. Like,
That's
if you
good
can see it on
casting.
screen, who cares where it comes from?
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's fine. Good.
Good for them.
Those are professionals then.
Right. I did. I think I was talking to you before the show started, where. No, sorry, it was on the show where I was talking about having read Ultimate Spider-Man while watching the movie. And it was really interesting because Ultimate Spider-Man is my favorite Spider-Man comic iteration of any kind, like games, movies, whatever. So kind of realizing maybe that's why I love Amazing Spider-Man so much is because so much of it comes from the Ultimate Universe.
Yeah.
For anybody who doesn't know, the Ultimate Spider-Man universe started in 2001 with Ultimate Spider-Man, and it was a way of modernizing the character. So you take him back to being in high school, but now it's like a 2000s high school. There's cell phones. It's just more in line for that time. Now, I had just graduated high school, but I was still young enough that it resonated pretty strongly with me, probably a huge chunk of why I love it so much. And seeing some of those hallmarks, like people say Andrew Garfield isn't nerdy enough to be Peter Parker. I disagree. He's incredibly socially awkward. He doesn't really know how to talk to women. You see it in multiple scenes where women are talking to him and he's just kind of like can't make eye contact with them.
Yeah. It's a different kind of
wearing
nerdy.
A sweater vest in 2000 to be a nerd.
I agree.
Still nerdy.
It's just a different kind of nerdy. It's a more modern nerdy, which I 100% agree. Like Golden Age Peter, like Toby was the more Golden Age buttoned up nerd with a pocket protector. But yeah, no, he is allowed to be a different kind of. Just because he skateboarded doesn't mean he was cool. He didn't have any friends. He couldn't talk to women. He was awkward. He was a little charming, but only just because like of that chemistry between them, and that's what worked for the characters.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, people say he's too attractive to be Peter, but when you look back at the comics, like Peter's never been an ugly guy. Like Peter
Parker landed a supermodel. He's got to have something going on.
Exactly. He's landed multiple 10s, and he's fumbled them all. But he they like him. They go for him. He's not an ugly guy. He's just awkward and nerdy. And Garfield captures that perfectly. He also captured the snarkiness of Spider-Man. I really, really loved seeing that for the first time on screen. Like the whole like, oh, my only weakness is small knives. Like. When he's like messing with that one mugger there, like that bit made me laugh so hard. It made me so happy to see that, like, actually, because Tobey's Spider-Man never did that. As much as I like that series,
not to the same extent.
He was never a quipper the way that he was in the comics. It just didn't work. He would say these lines here and there, but it was never like a thing.
No. It is interesting. I was just noticing now, like I was trying to make some notes. Amazing Spider-Man is the only Spider-Man movie that I'm aware of where he's got no friends. He has no real social circle. Nobody really propping him up. Like
just Gwen.
Right. Which, they develop a relationship over the course of the movie the movie. But to start off, he's got his uncle and aunt, and that's it. And I'll fully admit, West Wing is one of my favorite shows. Stars Martin Sheen as the president. Seeing Martin Sheen as Uncle Ben. Also way more impactful for me, way easier for me to connect to him. And again, like the Ultimate Universe, he kind of lasts a little bit longer, whereas in like Amazing Fantasy number 15, you don't get any sense of Uncle Ben is. He just dies.
Yeah, he's just a symbol to transfer on the great powers.
Which he doesn't even say in the comic book.
Yeah,
he doesn't say that in the comic book. That's like after he's dead and Spider-Man's walking in. Oh, Uncle Ben used to say, "With great power came great responsibility." So you never even see Uncle Ben say that. Whereas in the Ultimate Universe, he survives for like 4 or 5 issues. You actually get a sense of who he is, and I feel the same is true in Amazing Spider-Man. Now, I went back and checked just out of curiosity. Uncle Ben in Spider-Man and Uncle Ben in Amazing Spider-Man both die at around the 44-minute mark. So you get the same amount of screen time, or the same amount of time into the movie, but way more screen time with him.
That's
in
interesting.
Amazing Spider-Man.
You definitely do feel it. Like you feel this Peter's connection to his aunt and uncle in a much more realistic way. Like Tobey's Peter is definitely connected. You can tell he obviously loves his aunt and uncle, but like
sure.
it feels very real in the Amazing Spider-Man. And who Sally Field was Aunt May.
Yep.
Yeah, she's probably my favorite Aunt May of the three of them, because I think she really nails that like surrogate mom vibe without it like Tom Holland's Aunt May is a little too young. They play her for jokes. I think she works, like she's 50 something, but like
I think she's a good age for how young he is.
that's true.
It always struck me as weird that like Tobey Maguire is supposed to be 17. I mean, he's like 40, but he's supposed to be 17.
That was never believable, yeah.
And his aunt is like 90 dead. Like she's so incredibly old, and you're just like,
that is the Golden Age comics for
between you and your sister.
That was the Golden Age comics, and it was always a very, very weird situation. So I kind of like that they've aged her down over the years, but I feel like Sally Field, I think, was the perfect middle ground of it, where she was old enough. You could tell she was the older sister, and that she had like the wisdom there. She was there to be like a teacher and a mentor figure, but also she had a warmth and a real life about her that like Toby's Aunt May never really had. She was too old to have that, and they never really dug deeply into I'm blanking on her name. Tom Holland's Aunt May.
Marissa Tomei?
Tomei, yeah, Marissa Tomei. They never really had a chance to do too much with her. Like in No Way Home, she has her biggest she has the most to do in that.
She has that relationship with Happy Hogan, and that's all you really know about her.
Yeah, you don't really see her and Peter. You get the sense that she's probably a good mom figure, but like, there's not a lot there. You don't see a closeness there. But Sally nailed it. They hit the Goldilocks zone there.
I would have absolutely loved Amazing Spider-Man 3. Amazing Spider-Man 2 is obviously not nearly as good as the first one, but the moments that it does hit really hard for me.
I agree.
But
like it's probably my sixth favorite. Like if this were a top 6, Amazing Spider-Man 2 would be number 6. It's good. It's got a lot to love in it.
Yeah, it I guess spoilers, it's not in my top 5, but like barely. Because I agree, like there's the parts of it that work really well. Unfortunately, the parts that don't work are awful. So
yeah, it brings it down
significantly.
It sure does. But there's a great Spider-Man movie in there somewhere.
Moving on, my number 3 is another Tom Holland one. This is Homecoming. Now, I went back and forth on this one quite a bit, but I did just rewatch this recently, and I think there are a couple of things where this movie really shines. Obviously, the knock against it is always going to be that he is Tony Stark's sidekick, or he is Iron Spider. I get that. I get that complaint. I really do. I do wish that he had just a regular suit. But what I love about this one is it does focus on Spider-Man more, as opposed to, say, No Way Home, which has all 3 of them. I like my Spider-Man to be a bit more unique than that. And you actually get quite a bit of him being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Like, this is maybe the most grounded Spider-Man story, where he is just going around and helping the neighbors. And that's quite a montage going on there, where he's just like, it shows him in the movie as being a little bit lost and waiting for the Avengers. But I like the ability to just have him deal with regular...
Yeah.
It shows you him learning and not just punching people in the face, but actually helping people.
Exactly. He's rescuing people who like stolen bikes. He's trying to return the stolen bike. That's one of my favorite gags from that. It's like, oh, is this your bike? You know, he like stops a mugger, but now he doesn't know whose bike it is. Yeah. And he's just trying to help people. Then he winds up tying it up and leaves a note that's like, if this is your bike, take it, or something like that.
He stops the guy breaking into the car, and the guy's like, it's my car!
Yeah, exactly. How was I supposed to know that? And then it triggers a whole New York shouting thing. Hey, shut up!
It's also really worth noting, the Vulture, Michael Keaton's Vulture, might be the best Spider-Man villain on screen. Live action.
Up there.
Like, he is so perfectly menacing, but also, like, the few moments you see him as a dad, spoilers alert, I guess, he actually has warmth for his family. Like you can tell why he's doing this. He's just a man in a hard spot. So when he's being a father, he's very warm, he's very loving. And when he's being the Vulture, he is terrifying. And that when he's driving them to prom,
Yeah.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
and you see him turn, like as he realizes who Spider-Man is,
When the green light
such
flashes
an
on his
incredibly
face.
well acted scene, so well done. I as I said, I just rewatched this one recently, like 2-3 weeks ago, and it jumped significantly. Like it really hit. The parts that hit really well, and the parts that don't are pretty few and far between.
I agree with you. This is actually my third pick too. I really
You didn't
love.
even make the list. You're just copying me.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just gonna do it for everyone.
Yeah.
No, Homecoming is honestly like, it might be like, obviously it's one of my favorite Spider-Man movies, but it captures that feeling. Like each of these Spider-Man like series capture very different feelings in different eras in different aspects of Spider-Man. And I think what Homecoming, especially of the Holland movies, excels at is capturing like the youth aspect of it, the learning. It captures a lot of Ultimate Spider-Man. Like I feel a lot of Ultimate Spider-Man vibes in there too. Like not so much in terms of like how the story is constructed, but just in the vibes, like him swinging around and like going through the golf course and like not really having anything to swing off of. That felt like a gag from Ultimate Spider-Man. It wasn't like anything specific, but it felt like something that they would have done.
They have 100% done that gag. Not necessarily with the golf course, but definitely where like he goes somewhere. Like one of the first issues of Amazing Spider-Man back in the 60s, he goes to Florida to fight the lizard and realizes there's nothing here for me to swing off of.
That is funny. That is funny. I gotta go back and read some more like old Spider-Man. But no, I agree with what you were saying, how it felt like the most grounded Spider-Man movie too, because it really does. It's very, very down-to-earth stakes. I think they tied it into the Marvel Universe very well too, like the overarching tie-ins.
Yeah.
A lot of people bitch about that. A lot of people have complaints, but I thought they handled it actually very well in this one. When Iron Man shows up to save him in the end, like it felt, not the end, but to save him, it felt right for this version of Spider-Man where he exists in a world with other superheroes.
Yeah.
It didn't undercut it for me. I never really understood that Iron Boy Jr. Like slight. Sure, he's got the tech suit, which I agree. I wish he had not a tech suit. I wish he didn't have an AI informing him.
But it does give him somebody to bounce off of, which is fun.
It does. And I thought what they did with that was actually very interesting because he uses Karen in a very different way than Tony uses Jarvis. Yeah. And it's a way that Spider-Man would use an AI, the way that any teenage boy would probably use an AI, just as somebody to talk about girls, talk your way through stuff. No, I love it. And then that scene, I think it has one of the best Spider-Man scenes in any movie ever, when he's like being crushed under the building and he's trying to like, he has a panic attack. He tries to lift himself up and he can't, and he's freaking out and he fully thinks he's gonna die, but he has that reserve of strength. What does he say? Like, come on, Spider-Man. He's trying
Spider-Man. You can do it, Spider-Man.
Exactly. He's like trying to hype himself up, which is something that's such a great moment. Every single time they do that in the comics, it always hits, because Spider-Man is a character who he doesn't quite understand potential. Like, he is a guy that is one of the strongest in terms of raw strength, one of the strongest characters in the Marvel Universe, but he doesn't know that. He doesn't see himself as that. But
one of the strongest Earthbound ones for sure.
Sure, yeah. There's cosmic ones that are light years ahead of him, but like, he could stand toe-to-toe with the Hulk, and he has. And in terms of raw strength, especially when the adrenaline's pumping, like, he can accomplish just about anything. And to see one of those moments adapted on screen so well, it gives me chills just thinking about it, actually.
I like that you do say that it's adapted, because I don't have the issue in front of me, but that actually is a very famous Spider-Man issue where he's like, got all the rubble and he's just covered and he's about to drown. And he just has to like build himself up and get himself to that point where he's like, no, I can do this. I am strong enough. Exactly. And he does manage to lift the building off him. I wish I had that issue with me. The artwork for it is absolutely phenomenal.
I can see it in my
really
mind.
Cool seeing that on screen.
I agree with everything you said about the Vulture as well. Like, Michael Keaton is one of the most threatening Spider-Man villains ever on screen, and you can you can see that he came to play. Like, it was not, he wasn't phoning in anything. He just killed it. He absolutely killed it.
I will piggyback on something you said a minute ago. I liked that Iron Man came in and saved him for the boat scene, because you're right, that does make sense if you're in a world with multiple superheroes. But I also really liked that he didn't need saving in the end.
Yes.
He didn't have the iron suit. He didn't have Iron Man. He didn't have any friends. He was just a kid in a hoodie, essentially.
Yeah.
And he did pull himself up, and he did manage to beat Vulture by himself. Really empowering moment. Really loved it.
It's a great arc.
Is maybe not perfect, but probably as close as we're going to get for a live-action Spider-Man.
For a while, we'll see how this Spider-Man 4 turns out, like the Tom Holland Spider-Man 4. I have hope that where they let it off, they could get a really classic Spider-Man movie out of it, but
I really hope the next Spider-Man movie we get with Tom Holland is incredibly grounded.
Yes.
I would love to see just him fighting the Kingpin.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just protecting New York. No multiverse. No three Spider-Man. Just really low stakes, but big stakes for him.
Let's have it how I would do it. You bring in, like, Hammerhead and Tombstone and, like, the Magia, some of the crime families, and you have it build up and, again, revealed to be a plot that Kingpin is behind. And so, like, you get to bring this Spider-Man into a world that he's only been to in deleted scenes of Far From Home, apparently, where he I don't know if you've seen those, but there's like a deleted sequence where he stops like a whole mafia like situation.
I haven't seen that, but I'm curious.
They cut it out of the beginning. It's before he left to Europe. He still has the Iron Spider suit on, and it's in the montage at the beginning where he's taking care of loose ends, and one of those loose ends is like a mafia drop off. They play it for jokes. There's no real drama in it because he's got a bulletproof suit, so it doesn't really matter.
Fair enough.
But Marvel is always good at taking little things like that and actually giving them consequences years later. So maybe they could have reference to something like that if it moves forward into Spider-Man 4.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm nervous that we are going to have an incredibly similar top 5. My number 2 is Across the Spider-Verse.
Okay.
A new movie that just came out. We have had a couple of weeks to process it. That's why we didn't want to do this video right away. I did want to give it the benefit of time. I have seen it twice now. I think this movie is absolutely phenomenal. It does a great job of introducing you to so many different Spider-Men, making them all feel unique, making none of them feel like they're just crammed in there for no reason. They all have purpose to some extent, having unique art styles, unique character decisions. I think this movie did a great job. Now, one of the reasons, it might sound a little hypocritical because I just dinged No Way Home for having multiple Spider-Man and liking Homecoming more because it focuses on one. But this movie does such a great job of making it feel like a community of Spider-Man and like they are all there to help the main protagonist instead of just there for eye candy, that I found myself just being sucked into it and just really enjoying this world they've made. And I can't wait for the next one, despite the fact that apparently I'm going to have to for quite some time.
We do differ on this one. We'll get to my number 2 later. I decided to give it a longer berth before including it on this list. I've only seen it the once, so I want to see it at least one more time before I can really feel like I can have a definitive say.
Totally.
Although, I do love it. It's amazing. It is art. It might be one of the, 10 out of 10 movies of this year. Maybe the only 10 out of 10 movie of this year. We'll see. But
so far, I would say this is probably my favorite movie of the year. I can't think of anything else that really rivals it.
I agree. I would agree with that. It's easily my favorite so far. There's a couple that are coming that might dethrone it, but it's up there. What it accomplished. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead. No.
what it accomplished with the medium of animation is just nothing short of amazing. Like it's unfortunate that it worked some of these people to the bones and that these were very untenable conditions, but at least the art that they produced was next level. And I hope that they're able to like finagle that into a better position moving forward. But I don't know. It was like just gorgeous.
They had a really impossible task in front of them because the first Into the Spider-Verse is so well received. It actually won the Oscar for Best Animated Movie.
Yeah.
And it would have been really, really easy to just be like, all right, like just cram more in there. Just get more and more and more Spider-Man, more everything. Make it bigger. And have it just fall so flat on its face. And instead they did this amazing juggling act where they did put more and more and more in there, but still kept the heart of the story, still kept all of the emotion, all the character, well, mostly characters that you loved. It never felt overcrowded. It never felt like it overstayed its welcome. There's so many Easter eggs in this movie. Like you can tell the artists who created it, whether that's the writers, the directors, the actual artists, like just poured their heart and souls into this thing. It's really unfortunate to hear how poorly they were treated to get it done. But seeing the end results, I have to wonder if it was worth it. Like if they'll look back on this in a year or two and remember the final product more than the sweat that went into it. I don't know. I'm not an artist. I can't say for sure on that, but I hope so.
It's got to feel good to at least know that all that blood, sweat, and tears went towards something good, at least. Like, because people work that hard on things that suck, and that has to feel even worse. You know, if you spend 2 years of your life on a movie that just sucks. So thank God that this one didn't. And it is amazing. Like, very rarely do sequels of such hyped up movies live up to the hype. And I was worried about it myself. I was cautiously optimistic, but I was not super looking forward to it. Like I wanted to see where it went, you know? Like I just could not envision a world where this movie lived up to the first one, because that first one is perfect. But it did. Amazingly, it did. And it was even, I know we went over this in our talk about it before, but it even was a good part one. As a rule, I hate when movies split the story between a part one and a part two, but it managed to do that in a satisfying way. So it had everything going against it, and it still managed to come out as such a great work of art that it did.
I think, again, I've only seen it twice. I definitely want to check it out a few more times. I think it feels satisfying because the first one is definitely a Miles Morales story, and this one is a Miles Morales and a Gwen Stacy story. And even though you don't get, spoilers, you don't get the conclusion to Miles Morales' storyline, that is left on a cliffhanger, you do get a beginning, middle, and end to Gwen Stacy's story.
Yes.
So you are presented with a complete package, if you will, and you're left wanting more. And I think that's why it works so incredibly well.
Yes.
If they can manage to stick the landing on the third one, this will be my favorite trilogy of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that statement too. It's going to be a really hard trapeze act to land that third one. Now with the hype at crazy levels, but I have faith in them now. Like we will see. And they left it off in such a dramatic way. Like there's a lot of threads that they can pull. There's a lot that can happen. Yeah. And it looks like Nicolas Cage is going to be back, and so that's an instant 10 out of 10 for me, regardless. So,
Phil Lord and Miller, the two of the writers of this movie, or both of the Spider-Verse movies, also did a pass at Solo, and they ended up getting fired off of Solo.
Yes.
And I would pay so much money to see their version of Solo, because it's got to be better than what we got. No, I don't even dislike Solo, but man, do I wish I could see the Lord and Miller cut.
I would love to, I really like Solo as we got it, the Ron Howard Solo, but Yeah. Oh my God. Would I love to see that? Like, it sounds like it was incredibly different. Like different villain. What's his name? Michael Kenneth Williams played like a weird cat alien who was the bad guy instead of Paul Bettany.
Okay.
And there was just a lot of different little changes that, from what I've heard, I would have loved to see what they had. Like the rumors that were going around was that they were fired for making it too jokey.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I believe that, because these guys know how to make that balance between comedy and drama.
Yeah. I haven't seen them fail yet, so
no. And they walk that tightrope very well, and they always have. So like, yeah, I doubt that Solo was that bad. What I heard was that it was Lawrence Kasdan who did not like some of the things specifically that they were doing.
Okay.
And he felt that he had ownership over the Han Solo character because of all the rewrites he had done on Empire Strikes Back and stuff. And so he had sort of like seniority when he deferred to Kathleen Kennedy, and it was like one of these politic games where she had to keep Lawrence Kasdan happy at the extent of these people.
That's too bad.
It is, because honestly, I'm sure it would have been great.
Yeah.
It probably still would have bombed since they put it like a couple weeks after Infinity War. But
it was a tough spot to put it in, and so close to another Star Wars movie. Usually, you get Star Wars movies every like 2 years.
Yeah,
not every 4 months.
Is 6 months. Yeah, the last one was it was Last Jedi at Christmas, and so it was not long enough.
Yeah. Bringing it back, Mad Dingo says, unfortunately, everyone who left says almost 0% of their work made it in. So that's really unfortunate to hear that they were worked so hard and for no real reward. So that's too bad. As I said, I need to follow up on that story a little bit more and really dig deep into it. But so if that's not your number 2, what is?
So my number 2 would be Spider-Man 2, the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 2.
2 Ramis making it in the top 5.
2 Ramis. Spider-Man 3 did not make it, but God, I love Spider-Man 2. It might be one of the most perfect summer blockbusters in my mind, and it's such a good Spider-Man movie. Like, it has some problems. I do admit that the whole Mary Jane storyline is a little forced and a little annoying, some of the things that happen in there, but it keeps it moving. I've probably watched it 1,000 times, and I never get bored of it. It has such a pulse to the movie. Alfred Molina as Doc Ock is so good, so lovable. And then it makes that turn so much more tragic, because he is such a perfect mentor to this Peter Parker. You can see they have a very nice bond together. The Harry Osborn stuff I really like in this. Like, just that it's a classic Spider-Man problem. Like, his best friend hates Spider-Man, hates him, but if he tells him, it will like ruin his life. It's just such a classic Spider-Man conundrum, and I think Franco does a really good job in these movies. I've always liked Franco in these movies. Ultimately, I love that sequence in the hospital, like the birth of Doc Ock sequence, where Raimi really gets to like just do a random horror sequence for no real reason, where the tentacles are coming to life and killing all the doctors. Like, that's one that has always stayed with me as a child. Like, that was such a good scene. And I miss when superhero movies used to have these sort of varied tones, where they used to be able to go off on weird tangents or be very human. Like, again, this had some great Aunt May stuff with her moving out and all that jazz. I don't know. I love it, man.
I will say, when this movie first came out, I liked it quite a bit. I saw it in theaters, and it was phenomenal. And you're right. Like, there are definitely some scenes in it that have held up throughout the years. Like that first scene in the hospital where he kind of like kills all the doctors. Is great work. Like, it's really well done. Alfred Molina does phenomenal work in this movie. But as I've watched it more and more over the years, it just has diminishing returns for me. Now, I know that this is highly regarded as one of the best Spider-Man movies by a lot of people. But for me, it's got too much of that Sam Raimi campiness that just bleeds through. I don't buy that Peter and Mary Jane have any chemistry or relationship of any kind going on. There's a point in this movie where Kirsten Dunst actually says, like, oh, the director says I need to take acting lessons. And I'm just like, that was Sam Raimi talking to you. You probably shouldn't have said that out loud on the movie screen. Like,
ouch.
I don't care for her at all in the movie.
Ouch. Oh.
I mean, know, like, it just doesn't work for me. The whole Christ allegory with him getting carried by the people after the train, like,
I'm always glad for a good superheroes as Christ allegory, especially if you include the American flag in it somehow too prominently, which they do.
Oh, they do.
Give me a good American Christ allegory, and I'm all there.
I just don't think Spider-Man should, like.
He's not.
I understand that Zack Snyder, like, Superman is a god, like that makes way more sense to me.
Oh yeah,
Spider-Man shouldn't be your Jesus Christ, like that.
He's not a savior, although he does take our sins upon himself. He does blame himself for all the evil that happens.
Sure, but I don't know. It's a little weird for me, and I don't know. The Sam Raimi movies in general, I watched not that long ago. I don't remember why I went through like all the Spider-Mans, but to show my daughters.
Okay.
And I was just kind of like, you know what? This might be it for me. Like, unless there's a really good reason to go back, I think I might be just done and safe to put them in the rear view. Which I had my time with them. I enjoyed them at a certain point. They've got good moments.
Yeah.
But overall, I'm just kind of like, I'm good.
I mean, different strokes for different folks, right? Like
100%.
And that is the glory of this age, is that there are so many Spider-Man movies to choose from. You can very well put those to bed and be like, and rest easy knowing that like there's gonna be other Spider-Man movies to watch. There are many other Spider-Man movies to watch. For me, however, I love these movies. I love this trilogy. I love Spider-Man 3, even though it's not a good movie. It's it's bad, and it really falls apart in the ending. It has maybe the worst of the relationship stuff, with the whole love triangle between Amnesiac Harry and Kristen Dunst and Toby. Yeah. But Spider-Man 2 is it's a high point for me. It's one that hasn't like my love for it hasn't degraded the longer I've watched it.
Which is totally fair. I don't want to take anything away from you if it's something you love. Just for me personally,
for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. And I mean, I've gotten more critical of it over the years, but I love the little Raimi-isms, that campiness that comes with his style. I just find it very interesting. I find I never find those movies boring, because there's always some weird little thing happening in the background, or just a weird choice of extra, or like, oh, let's hang out with Aunt May while she goes and gets denied for a bank loan for a couple minutes, you know? We'll have a whole extended scene there. Like, I just love those weird little asides that he does. I don't know. It's my number 2.
Totally fair. All right, I have to assume we're going to have the same number 1.
I think we might.
Into the Spider-Verse?
Into the Spider-Verse. Best Spider-Man movie.
All right, you redeemed yourself. Into the Spider-Verse came out 5 years ago. Just got a sequel. Didn't make a whole lot of money. It did make its budget back. It had the smallest budget of any Spider-Man movie at only $90 million.
Yeah.
Only.
Yeah.
But only made $375 million. So it cost the least, but it also made the least. But with that tiny budget, it managed to spawn a sequel, which is doing very well in theaters at the moment, and win an Oscar for Best Animated Film. It's an absolute juggernaut on Netflix. Like, I always see it in, like, maybe not the top 10, but, you know, right up.
Always trending. It's yeah.
And it's one of those movies where, like, I could honestly just put it on almost anytime. Like, it is so incredibly rewatchable.
100%.
And I get it just a little bit more every time I see it. There's just something going on in the background that I missed the first time. Well, for 1,000 times. It's got maybe one of my favorite Stan Lee cameos, where he's, like, selling all the Spider-Man merchandise right after his death.
I agree.
I don't mean this to sound grim, but, like, that kind of is who Stan Lee is, like just like peddling wares no matter what. And you
It's
see the sign like no refunds or whatever, no.
yeah,
It's
no,
it's
absolutely
so
no
perfect.
refunds.
Yeah,
Somebody
it always
online,
fits eventually.
somebody online put it very well, where like that's such a good Stan Lee cameo because it doesn't try to cover up the fact like he was both a wise man who created a lot of great stuff, helped create a lot of great stuff, but at the same time, he's also a shameless huckster.
Oh yeah,
And then that shows both sides of it very well. Which I feel like obviously Stan approved of it. He did it,
Yeah.
but I think that's like, yeah, easily the best Stan Lee cameo.
it's and like the cast up and down, like Jake
Mhm.
Johnson, Haley Steinfeld, Shamik Moore, like they're
Oh, yeah.
so good together. They're so, I don't know, let's say they just have a lot of chemistry, but like again, like that Miles and Gwen relationship where
Just fits.
some people ship for it and some people don't, and that's totally fine. But like again, like I could just watch them being friends.
Yeah.
They're so charismatic together. I don't know. I'm at a loss for words, but
There's an electricity there for sure.
which is great with his Venom strike. So that's well done.
And with Jake Johnson's Peter and him, like there's a really good mentor-mentee relationship there.
Yeah.
And I think, like, honestly, Jake Johnson's Peter B. Parker is my favorite Spider-Man. He is like my Spider-Man.
I love that you have to wait a little bit to the sequel, but you hear about his relationship deteriorating with Mary Jane, which if you read the comics at all, you know that they have been not divorced because the devil kind of signed a contract, but like they haven't been married for probably 15 years now.
Yeah.
And so in the movie, they kind of show them dissolving, their marriage dissolving. He still obviously cares about her, but he can't quite bridge that gap between, you know, having kids and being with the woman that he loves. And through his relationship with Miles, you see him kind of mentoring Miles, but also Miles teaching him about himself and be like, no, you can be a father. You will be good at this. And then in the sequel, we find out that he did get back together with Mary Jane and they did have a child. And I can remember watching the trailer, and they don't show you Mayday Parker in the trailer, but you see like the harness for him.
Yeah.
And like I audibly like, oh my god, they get back together and have a kid. Like I was so excited for him based entirely off of his character arc in this movie. I won't say he's my favorite version of Spider-Man or of Peter Parker, but he's way up there. And it was so wonderful that this like mentor / side character can garner that much emotion from you in an animated movie. And like I hesitate to even call it that because like obviously it is animation, but like I don't want to take anything away from it because it's animated. Like I think that it, despite being animated, has more heart than any other Spider-Man movie created to date.
Yeah. Oh, I 100% agree. But it's like some people say animated movie as like a derogatory term, or as if it's a lesser, as if it's a cartoon for kids. Yeah. Whereas this is very much a Spider-Man movie. The fact that it's animated is just a stylistic choice. It's a medium that it exists in.
I have a group chat with some of my neighbors.
Yep.
And admittedly, it's text. It's hard to tell tone. But one of them was saying like, "Oh, we were gonna go for a date night, but the only thing playing was the cartoon Spider-Man." Lol.
Oh,
and my brain is just like, what does that mean? Like it's so good. Like it's better than a lot of real life movies I've seen recently. Like
it's the best movie
but
in theaters right now.
And it's just 100%. And like how do you describe that though? Because for so many people, animation does mean for kids. And
right.
I appreciate Guillermo del Toro at the Oscars saying like, no, animation is a medium. It is not. I'm gonna mess up his exact words, but essentially, it is a great way to tell a story. It is not, this is for kids.
Exactly. And I think that, I don't know that Into the Spider-Verse would play as well in live action. Like, I think it is a movie that uses the strengths of the medium so well to the fact where, like, I don't think it would play. I think, like, the fact that the Kingpin in this movie looks the way he does makes you feel a certain way and makes you feel threatened, adds a certain vibe to it that you wouldn't feel if it was just Vincent D'Onofrio or another big guy. You might do something similar, but it wouldn't quite capture that same feeling, or just the explosion of colors in the Hadron Collider at the end, like the way that these characters move, some of the camera shots, like it couldn't happen. You either wouldn't be able to get it, or it wouldn't work as well in live action. Like,
well, that's one thing I was going to say is you've got Tom Holland, who's a young kid. He's a ballet dancer, gymnast, and he does a phenomenal job, but he can't move the way that Spider-Man has moved in the comics for 70 years, whereas the animated version absolutely can. It is fictional, obviously it's cartoon, but it is at the same time the closest you're going to see to bringing these characters to life.
Exactly.
Like, for real life movies, if you have like a Superman, he makes perfect sense. Like, he flies, which is a little hard to do, but we figured out how to do that with technology. But he basically just punches people. Like, he's more of a boxer. Whereas for Spider-Man, to get him swinging and have it look accurate, realistic, not cheesy, really hard to do. Like, I love Amazing Spider-Man, but rewatching it the other day was just like, oh, that's kind of rough, some of those swinging scenes. Like,
that was
they do the best they can, but
that was something I remember hearing Sam Raimi talk about with his movies, that he had to invent the cinematic language of web slinging. Obviously, we had never seen that on film before. There was the cartoons, but they never did it very well. So he had to like invent whole camera rigs and like shut down entire streets of New York and like do some pretty intense engineering to figure out how to make these things work and look good. And like he did, but I don't know, like it goes, like, it does take some thought, I suppose, to do these things, like.
And that's one thing I can't take away from the Sam Raimi movies is, specifically for their time, they do look really good, and he does a lot of day shots. Most of Amazing Spider-Man takes place at night. Yeah. So they can kind of fake it a little bit more.
Yeah, they hide a lot, and it makes it look muddier too. Like, I don't know. It definitely. But anyway, back to Into the Spider-Verse.
Actually, Into the Spider-Verse.
I think they used the supporting cast very well too. Like, obviously our main cast works very well, but like Nick Cage as Spider-Man Noir and John Mulaney as Spider-Ham, and I don't know the actress that plays Penny Parker, but she nails it as well. They all
Glenn.
Okay.
Penny Parker.
Okay. Shout out to her. She did a great job. But I think that they what am I trying to say here? They add a very specific flavor to the movie. Like, if you're gonna do a Spider-Verse movie, I think it's cool that they chose these specific Spider-Men specifically, because they, like, you have Spider-Ham, who's like the obviously cartoon one. You have Spider-Man Noir, who's a darker one. Penny Parker is like a radically different Spider-Person than any of the others. Like, they provide an interesting flavor, and they bounce off of each other in a cool way. Different than the Spider-Verse lineup in the comic too. Like, all these characters appear, but it's a much more expanded, bloated event where it's not just a tight group of these people. And I mean, anything with Nick Cage in it also gets my vote too. So the second I heard he was going to be a Spider-Man, I was going to see this movie.
And he's got some of the best lines too.
He sure does.
We don't choose the ballroom, we just dance. I've never been able to use that in real life, but man, do I want to.
Oh, it's an all-time classic.
Yeah. And I really like the second one is more of a Miles and his mother relationship, but the first was very much Miles and his dad. And excuse me, Brian Tyree Henry plays Jefferson Davis.
Yeah.
And is so funny, is so on point, but also very emotional. Like the scene where he's talking to him through the door and he won't even open the door for him. He doesn't know that he can't because he's tied up to a chair. But he's like kind of like opening himself up to his son and like feeling rejected and hurt as you would. But also like Miles is desperately like, no, I want to give you a hug right now. Like I want to be able to do something, but I can't. I just I can't say it enough. Like the emotion to this movie is so strong.
That scene in particular hits every time too. Seen it probably 1,000 times. Every time that moment comes up, like it just plucks on the heartstrings.
Yeah.
So good.
All right. So, I mean, our top 5 is pretty much the same. Do we want to bother trying to merge it together or just...
No, it seems like we pretty much have the same, except I have some of the Tobey movies in there.
Yeah. And as you said, it might change if you see Across the Spider-Verse a couple more times. And
yeah, exactly. As time goes on.
All right. So what do you guys think? Do you agree with our decisions? Is there anything that we left off that you can't believe that we did? Is there anything way too high? Let me know down in the comments below if you have anything you want to say, or just let me know your top 5 Spider-Man movies, and we'll catch you next week. You guys have a great week.
Bye.